Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are tuning in. Welcome to Run It Back, episode number 50. I'm really happy to say that number because this started off as a bit of a creative venture with, no goal in sight. And then when I started moving along, 50 was like, maybe I could really do that. Who knows? And I know there's certain other people, some of which even on this call, that have achieved much bigger milestones, but that one feels good. So let's continue on with the premise of the show. Run It Back takes teams that have played previously and we run it back, so to speak, where we talk about preparation, we talk about matchups, talk about game planning, we talk about in-game adjustments, things that worked, things that didn't, what we would do differently, and what we would do the same if we were to have the opportunity to do it again. Today, we are looking at S. Oliver Wurzburg versus BG Göttingen. I'm not going to say that properly, and I'm sure my guest will correct me in a minute. And this game is the most recent game we have done on Run It Back. This actually took place 2 days ago. So, when this comes out, it'll be a few weeks ago, but this is April 10th, 2021 that this game happened. Similar to many other Run It Backs, we will have a guest from the game, the assistant coach from S. Oliver Wurzburg, and my friend Enrico Kufuor joining us today. Enrico, give me a second. I'm going to try to do you justice with a little bit of an introduction here. Enrico is both the head coach of the U19 team and an assistant coach with the team we're exploring today at S. Oliver. He's been there for 2 years almost at this point now. He is a contributor of Euro Hopes as a collaborator. He has been with PSK Lions as an assistant coach at the Pro A level and a head coach at the U18. He was there for 2 years. He is one of the founders of IVT Basketball, where he was for 4 years. He was also a coach with, I'm not going to say this one right either, don't hate me, IJsbaren Brennerhaven, where he spent 1 year as the head coach of the NBBL and Regionalliga team. And one that I will definitely know is he spent some time with Alba Berlin as a head coach of the U15 and an assistant coach at the U19 team for 1 and 3 years respectively, 4 years total. And of course, for my North American friends, he was a player at NC State and a Letterman winner for 3+ years. So Enrico, welcome. I'm really happy to have you here, man. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me, man. Thank you for having me.
It's let's start here when we go through anything. Give me a bit of a rundown. The majority of the people who listen or watch this show are North American based. Give me a bit of a rundown of your league, your level, where you are in the season, if you've played this team previously, all that fun stuff, please.
Um, well, let me talk about everything in a sense. Well, I'm an under 19 coach and also the coach of the development league team, the development team that plays in the fourth highest men's league. I'm the head coach of those two teams. So basically, um, I am responsible of bringing guys to the professional level,
Right.
but also this year they put me up as an assistant coach with the BBL side, which was also due to COVID, because the other two leagues basically were halted due to high numbers over here. So
Right.
that's basically where I'm at right now. Now we're towards the end of the season. We have, after this game, I think we have 7 more games to go, of which actually the game, we would have a game on Wednesday, but that one got canceled due to COVID. Um, and right now we're actually fighting against relegation. It's been a kind of tough season for us in terms of our roster. It's been very G League like, with new guys coming in or guys being in and out and everything because of either not right fits or injuries, season-ending injuries, and so on and so forth. So that's been something that's been kind of tough, and basically, um, led to us being in the position we're in now, but now we're just trying to make sure that we don't move down and to the league right beneath us. But yeah, we're still optimistic we can achieve that since we're not in that place right now either.
I am as well. So let's talk about this game. Obviously it's a COVID season. A lot of things are modified. You don't always know which players you're going to have due to testing and people sitting out due to injuries, all that kind of stuff. So when do you start this scout? And, how do you approach that breakdown? Give me sort of the process of what you're looking for, what's going in, how many games out you're watching, all that kind of stuff.
Um, let me talk about both as well too.
Yeah,
The
absolutely. Sure. Let
19,
us know, please.
um, with the pros, it really does depend on how many games we have in the week. Usually, it would be one game per week, right? So, but now due to COVID, we would have more games. We had at one point we had a 2-week quarantine. So right after that, we would have two, at times even 3 games a week. So so the scouts would, we would start usually about a week ahead, and the scouts would overlap, right?
Right.
Same thing in terms of scouting for the under 19. We would also usually start working on it about a week ahead, watch 2 to 3 games. And if we played them before, would also watch our first matchup against that same team, which I think is at times even more important. Obviously, you still look at what they did in the last few games, if anything has changed, if they put in new stuff and whatever. But also, you're trying to see what worked against the team, what didn't work against the team in the first time around, right?
Like it. Appreciate. So are there are there differences in the report that you're creating from the U19 level to the pro level? And how have you personally approached those? If you're getting the call up, so to speak, midway through the season, how have you personally approached those in terms of how you're delegating your time to creating these reports?
Um, well, I will say that for the pro team, most of the reports, or usually all of the reports, the other assistant coach Stephen Key is responsible for.
Right.
I wouldn't really do the reports. I would more so just watch games and just try to give input and stuff as much as I'm capable of. The reports would be a little bit different though, and also the way that they're delivered, right? With the under 19, usually what I would do is just have basically one sheet of paper, and really just talks about how they're playing, and then talks some about the personnel, just key points. And because I think especially with development teams on the ninth, with youth guys, it's way more important to um, keep it down to a minimum. Plus, I more so want to focus on actually what we do. So that's why I don't want to have what's about the other team to, for it to be that much. So usually it will more so be mostly be what we want to do, what we want to focus on, and then have some tidbits about what the other team does. In terms of the BBL side, um, we do not hand anything out.
Interesting.
We have a board up in the gym all week with the personnel, with the plays, so the guys can look at that all week. And the plays we will also go through, or some of the plays we will also go through on the court, and then the video will be split up. We will have one day of the personnel, and we'll have another day where we will go over we will watch and we'll go over the plays again. And
Interesting.
and the personnel part would also be where when we watch it before the clips are even shown, the players are supposed to tell you something about the player that's about to be played. So played on video. So we would maybe say this and that player, Felix, tell us something about him. And then he would basically tell us something about him. Then we start, going through the plays and, keep, and still talk through it, but more so go through it that way.
I like this a lot. So your guys are getting, I mean, I've done a presentation with you just on game preparation and everything, but guys are basically getting every method of delivery, meeting your players where you're at. I talk about sometimes or whatever, but like they don't actually get a paper in hand, but they get something on the board that's there for them that they can see, and they can spend as much or as little time looking at that as they want. And then they're going to get a walkthrough on court. On the walkthrough on court, are your guys, would you say that it is top end loaded for more of your better players, or is everybody getting reps at seeing from every position, so to speak?
Everybody's getting reps. Usually also on like three days ahead, there might be some actions too that might be important that would go through live.
Right.
And towards the end of the week, it would more so be just literally a walkthrough, but everybody gets the reps.
Do you find that this model works best because of the spacing of your games? Like you mentioned, you're playing usually about once a week and you have some time in between. Do you think the time factor leading into the games really helps to be able to accomplish all this?
Well, I think it's easier because you have more time. It's easier to go through the scout to go get things down. Last year, for instance, with the development team, as an example, because they also would also play once a week. It would be a similar thing where um, we would Wednesday and Thursday, for instance, would just go through a whole bunch of actions that the other team plays
Right.
without really going through, talking to them that these are the plays or whatever, just going through actions. And I think if it's a quick turnaround, it's tough to do things like that. Same thing
Right.
with the BBL team right now. We would with the BBL team would do it once, but that even is a little bit easier to do when it's 1 week in between, because now we had if we would play on Wednesday, for instance, against Frankfurt, we would probably not go through that the same way. It would more so be walkthroughs
Right.
and trying to get everybody to remember it that way. Even though I think the whole going through actions, going through it live, a lot of times helps the guys a little bit more than just being able to walk through the stuff, especially with a young team as we have this year.
Do you I guess with both clubs you could talk about it, but like do you play a lot of live stuff in those days, or is it usually more just walkthroughs and talking points?
In
In the lead up, the scout process, let's say you're getting on court, you have the other team's actions. Are you more so walking through them, or are you letting them play live, full contact, go at speed
when I,
type deal?
when I say actions, I don't actually mean complete plays, right?
Right,
Just certain actions that the
right. Like,
team that just
like
come, over and over again that
these
might
guys run a lot of stagger away, so we're
exactly.
gonna right,
That's something that we would go through live. And if we go through the whole play so that they, could recognize once it's called or, they run through it, then that one would more so be a walkthrough. But
right.
just going through the actions, we usually go live with that, just to make sure also that they understand how we really want to fight over what it takes and whatever, you know.
Love it. So let's go from general to specific a little bit. Let's get away from like the process with this particular team. What sort of things did you identify? Like, hey, these are the actions they're going to run, or hey, these are the key personnel that we really have to zero in. What was sort of the specific process for this game in terms of how you guys felt you could come away with it?
This game, was more so defensively. It was two things that were really important to us. One was flare screens, or at times they didn't do it as much in this game as we thought they would, where they would have Iversons or staggered screens.
Right.
But we would work on those and on the pick and roll, because they're big. Tai Odiase, I don't know if you know him, but he's had an incredible year. And the thing about him is that he rolls so fast that they carved us up in the first game,
Right.
where the bottom guy tried to be in there, tag, if it's a two-man side, tag him, and they would just zip that ball to the corner and had wide open threes all game. So there we tried to, we decided, okay, we'll do something that we usually don't do, is we try to tag him with the top guy right on the nail.
So I got a couple clips video wise from
Yeah.
this. Let's get to that a little bit, I guess, in film. But I was very curious about the high tagging, because I haven't seen a high tag team in a while.
Yeah, the thing is with Odiase is that he comes to set this, like he runs there so fast that um, the ball defender a lot of times already get out the way thinking they're about to get hit, and he's not even trying to hit anybody really. He's just trying
Right.
to get in there and out there, but he's so big and comes there with so much speed and force that it still creates an advantage. So that also leads to him being being able to roll down to the basket so quick. And that was a really, 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 really big problem for us. So yeah, so then we figured the high tag would be something that could really help us, because they did not look for that in any other games before that.
Right.
So
So this raises a really interesting question to me that I think is applicable here. I mean, with screen coverages, are you guys typically a team that's like, we're going to do what we do? Or are you a team that will be like, we will change based upon situation, opponent, and try and, do what's best for us against that particular opponent? And if you are the latter, how much time do you spend implementing that in a game? Or in a practice leading up to? Is it as simple as, hey, we're going to tag from here? Or do you have to rep it and go through everything?
we're basically do what we do, basically, because we do defend in terms of ball screen defense with the drop, a high drop, and and a switch. So we do recognize, okay, the lineup is a little bit different, so we might do something a little bit different. And in this game, you can see that as well. That as soon as Odiase was not in the game, we would go more so into switching.
Right.
But it's more so those two things, and we do not work on that extensively in terms of scouting it, in terms of the scout. But yeah, obviously, it's still something we work on, right?
Right. So being a do what you do type team and then making an adjustment for this game, what does that change look like leading into this game?
Not necessarily adjustment. Well, you're talking about the high
The
tag.
high tag, the
Yeah,
other players, so to speak, really.
yeah. I mean, we actually that's one where we did go through about 3 days in a row, and had to really um get them to understand it. And first 2 days, they were not really doing it all the way right. Would just want to kind of stick their elbow out, touch them a little bit, and
Right.
stop impeding the progress. Um, but in the end, we did get it down, and we're in the way. I felt at times it was a little bit too low, um, but it took 3 days to get that down.
Right. And by too low, you mean too low on the floor, not too low in their stance.
Yeah, too low on the floor,
Um,
beneath the free throw line. We wanted to get him on the free throw line. And a lot
yeah,
of times we more so waited on him, or the times even the way was kind of long where it was tough to get to that spot too.
Right. So this ties into what are typically my next questions in terms of pace of play and how many to the offensive boards in terms of your style. Did you guys spend any time making adjustments for like what your standardized things were for these, or did you go with what your, like, if you are a team that wants to play fast, typically, did you play fast in this game? Sort of take me through what you would normally do versus what you did in this game, if it's any different.
We normally do want to play fairly fast. Interestingly enough, like we're a lot faster when our guard number 8, Rob Lowry, is in the game, or when
Right.
he's there in general. And this was his first game back after being 4 or 5 games, for being out for 4 or 5 games. And in the time he was injured, we got very, very slow, right?
Right.
So he was in there. We were very fast. When he was injured, we got very slow. And that also, even though we want to play fast, we're not 100% sure that the guys are always able, the guys apart from Rob are able to process things as fast. So,
Right.
so we just kind of let them go at the pace at which they're going, right? So if they're slowing down, we're saying, okay, then we're just gonna go with that. But as soon as Rob's in there, everything's a little bit faster. But you do see at times, you will see how good or not good we are in terms of processing things, seeing things, and break situations.
Right.
Yeah.
What about to the glass? What's the standard thing for you guys? What are you trying to do on the offensive rebounding side? And does this change with particular opponents ever?
It doesn't change at all. Usually we have 2 to 3 guys running in. The bigs can always run in, and then we would want, in general, maximum of one other perimeter guy to run in there, right?
Right.
Which would so for us to be able to still run back, and we usually do not have problems in our backwards motion. In terms of numbers, just sometimes it would be more so a problem of getting to the right guys.
Makes sense to me. So usually next I go with what you're tracking in games, what you're looking at. I have a special interest with this for you because you are a coach who's kind of straddling both teams, right? So you've kind of been called up like midway through the season, so to speak. And what responsibilities are given to you in terms of what you guys are tracking, and how, if at all, do you feel that differs on your perception to be able to coach and take in the game while you have to track certain things on the bench?
I've actually started just putting a sheet together and started tracking things myself, because I did come in during the middle of the season.
Right.
So they kind of already had their thing going, knowing what they wanted out of stuff, right? And so I just got in there, and they told me, okay, just go out there, just sit there and watch the game. Tell you if you see something, let us know, whatever. So I just started making a sheet for myself, and more or less, one thing that we did start tracking is how successful we are after timeouts. And also, and then the other things were baseline or side baseline out of bounds, how many, how good we are in those.
Right.
And that's mainly it. The one thing that I did notice at times, I've struggled a little bit with when I started writing a lot of stuff down, because I do write in timeouts. I would write down everything he would say, and and at times when I'm just writing down what I see in that moment, I do lose track at times. But that's more so. But it's not that I track something specific when the game is going on, but more so things I see, so I don't forget to tell them. And yeah, I noticed that last game, for instance, I wrote less things, but it allowed me to take the game in a little bit different.
Yeah, it's wild to me. Like I've had such a wide spectrum of what coaches are tracking on the sideline or writing down on the sideline. And like I remember when I first started at York University, they were like in my first year, they basically wanted me to type out the entire game on my computer.
Really,
Right. So it'd be like, number 3 2-point attempt from here. And I'm like,
really a play-by-play, like
yeah, and like not with any sort of short codes that like they're actually utilizing for the
yeah,
play-by-play. They want it like the whole thing the whole way out. And I'm like, can anybody do this? Like, is this possible? And then, I've had guests like Kostas Kologaropoulos comes to mind right away. Kostas, like the amount of things he tracks on the sideline, it's like, wow, dude, how do you do that? For
yeah.
me, at this point, like I want my assistants geared in and watching things. Like I really want to hear their point of view and see what they're doing. What from the box score, if anything, have you found is important to your staff? Like at halftime, at the end of a quarter or whatever, what are you guys kind of keying in on, if anything? Or do you rely on what you guys are tracking for yourselves more so than the box?
It's more so what we're tracking for ourselves, but it does still give us, tells us things, right? For us, a lot of times when we do look at the amount of 3-pointers that we shot, right? So, and that a lot of times means that we're getting advantages out of our actions and moving the ball. When
Right.
when the numbers are low, we're not, or too low, then we know that the ball's not moving like that. When the numbers are actually, um, a lot of times when the numbers are too high, it a lot of times means the same thing for us because we start jacking up bad shots as
Right.
well.
Just coming down and letting it fly type deal.
So that's one thing, and and yeah, that's one. And then the other one that's really important to us, especially this year, and especially with the type of with the way that Dennis likes to play. He a lot of times wants guys that really know how to read the game, or more in terms of how do you, like, not super tough players, but more so players with high basketball IQ and everything.
Right. Right.
So that's where then it's like, okay, we just have to make sure that the other team does not kill us on the glass, and make sure that we, talk about that again if that's something that's happening. Right.
Right. I got two more before I dive into a little bit of film with you. The first of the two is talk to me a little bit about you're down 13 at the half in this game. What kind of coaching goes on in that locker room? Like what kinds of things is Dennis taking in with you guys, the staff, and then what kinds of things is he saying to the team to get them to change behavior? Like what if this is only a couple days ago. What do you remember sort of at that point? You're like, we're not doing enough of this. We need to do more of that kind of stuff. What's being said and how are those corrections being made?
Um, Thing is, for us, in terms of this game, we one thing we had to figure out is to stop the three, right? That's one thing that was kind of tough for us in the first half in terms of making in terms of the high tack. Um, we we were basically trying to make them understand to, you know, play off of each other in a way that the guy that might be the low man, that he has to read the other guy and not just be glued to the guy in the corner. That as soon as you bump him, you got to get right back out to your man, just, trying to get those points down, trying to make sure that we do not give up as many open threes.
Right.
Interestingly enough, in the second half, we did kind of, it seemed like the opposite more so happened, that we stepped away more, or were slower to react to things. But a lot of times at halftime, it's just with us, the thing that we noticed is that the the scouting report, or what we want out of it, does work a lot of times. It's just that in that moment, we might not do something hard enough. We might not believe in it as much. And that's why the last few games at halftime, like, we try to get down on that again. One thing that happened in the last game too is that offensively, most of the time when we rolled, we got the big for a layup. And we're in there saying, hey, we want you to roll to the basket. So it's more so reinforcing, at least the last few games, it was more so reinforcing on the things that we've done well, and that we're actually in the scouting report, and, just, double down on it and saying, it worked for us. Let's double down on it. Let's make sure that we get it right. It's more so that than anything else.
So that's very interesting, because my last question was going to be, what, if anything, from the scouting report, like, hindsight is 2020, I always say when I'm introducing this question, what, if anything, was missing, or you didn't do enough of? Like, what was there like, this is actually a game that you guys lost. We haven't done a game that somebody's lost in a while. Usually my guests want to pick one that they've remarkably come ahead or something like that. But with this one, you did end up losing. So what, looking back, was missing at all? And was the scout a factor in the loss, or was it just an execution type deal?
Well, in this game, definitely the scout was not a factor, and it was just basically the execution, defensively 100%, and offensively. At times, we got stagnant by not really attacking ball screens, and when we did, they're big a lot of times, not really rolling. But that, at least that was this game. Other games, obviously, in hindsight, you would think about, oh, we did something wrong. We should have, in comparison to the first game, right afterwards, we said that right away. Maybe we should have high tagged him. Maybe we should
Right.
have switched. Maybe, so this time we do think that the game plan was the right one. In the end, it was just not enough, right?
Love it. I'm going to get into some film, unless some of the coaches that are in the room have some questions for Enrico. Obviously feel free to jump in, but if not, I'm going to move into that. Enrico, with the film, I didn't give you the little blurb before, I apologize, but with the film, I'll try and play everything 2 to 3 times. And basically what I'll be doing is, the first time, I know you've sat in one before, but just for your sake, right now, the first time I'll just play it through so you can get a look at it, so everybody can take a look. The second time, for anybody who might be listening on a podcast version, I'll try to describe it for them. And then the third time, take it away, tell me what you see, what you like, what you didn't like, what you would do different, etc. type deal. Really just trying to have a film session with you, and see your point of view. Are you good in terms of this size? You can see that okay?
Perfect.
Awesome. So first play of the game here for you guys. I'll let it run through, and then I'll try and describe it. But basically, it ends up with a horns type set and a wing step up and roll that ends up with a basket. So I'll go through that guy one more time, and then all you. We start with a horn set, forward entry. There's a pin down on the other side. Comes and gets it at an angled handoff. There's a wing pass, and then he attacks middle, swings it back, and we end up with this step up and roll, almost like an empty side ball screen. Gets it. Take me through it, man. What were you guys trying to establish? What do you see that you like? What do you not like? Let me know where to go in the clip. All you.
This play is actually a staple of an offense. Not necessarily this because we have a lot of options out of this play, right?
Right.
And us going to the foreman and setting that screen to him is a little wrinkle to what we usually do. So we wanted to kind of throw something else at them from what we go through most of the time. And yeah, what we in the end wanted to do though is get we call it shirt four, meaning the foreman gets the first screen, and a lot of things can happen out of that. So right here, he sets that screen. The four can actually go for a handoff and then give the handoff to the corner man instead of the point guard.
Right.
What I wished in this situation though, can you go back a little bit? Just go back a little bit. So right here, you can see it actually did get a little bit stagnant, but not stagnant, but we did not get what we wanted out of it right away. That's why even the handoff to the corner actually happens. So right here, it gives them the handoff. So off of this, I wished that our big would roll right here right away, right? So play it. So if he would roll right there, we would have our foreman in the dunker spot, and
Right.
he would be able to attack off of that right away. Okay, didn't happen. That's okay. So off of that, he goes right here. Same thing again. I wish he would have rolled right here again. He didn't, he rolled kind of late, but it's okay because we were able to keep it going, and then we go off of a ball screen towards the end again for easy layup. But in the end, the good thing is we just kept it moving and went to the next action, to the next action, to the next action.
Right. So then this brings about my exact next question. With those next actions, those play after the play, play after the play, play after the play, are a lot of those just being done by feel and by these players learning to play together? Like, hey, didn't get that, let's ball screen and try again. Hey, didn't get that, let's try the step up angle and try again. Or are they sort of being taught, like, if you don't get this, then go to, if you don't get that, then go to? What's sort of the learning procedure for what you guys have there?
Here is in this particular play, for instance, the handoff to the corner is something that we do work on. So you don't have nothing, okay, handoff to the corner right away. But after that, it's basically just trying to do it off a feel, keep the ball hopping, and just try to get to the next action. But we usually one thing that we do is that in certain actions we do try to get the ball to the corner man to then have a two-man game with the big, which
Right.
here it kind of happens at the end without the big having the ball. You already let go of it, but that basically just trying to get to that, right?
So then Chris basically put, I think, pretty much the same question in the chat. Like, are you scripting the early actions to see how they're handling certain situations? Which I think sort of ties in that, like, yeah, the beginning is, the play, and then afterwards is going off of the feel and trying to get certain things out of it.
Yeah, and that's something that our head coach Dennis Wucherer really likes and really wants, and that's why he wants players with a high basketball IQ, so that we do have certain actions that we will work on and get to, but then after that, he wants to allow players to just simply play off a feel and figure things out on the court themselves.
Like it. Let's move on. I got a lot of clips. I don't anticipate getting through all of them, Enrico. Let me know how you feel time-wise. Obviously, I'm trying to be respectful of your time, but basically this one, there's a wing handoff, ends up in a top ball screen, and there's the high tag that we were talking about. They fill in behind, you give up an open three. I don't see teams high tag very often. You talked a little bit about it in the preparation, but take me through it. How do you think you did? Why did you guys implement it? All that fun stuff.
So go ahead right here. If you see Ty Odiasa, so the big with the number 21, it's right here setting the screen, but he does not really go back again. He runs at guys. He does not really touch anybody, so he always gets out super quick. But he's able for some reason to still make the guy divert his
path. Yeah.
Exactly, divert his path. So that also makes him, be able to roll quicker. Plus, he is super fast and super athletic. So right here, what usually would happen for us in the first game is that the high tag, he would in this game, the high tag, he would not do that. He would stick to his man, and the other guy on the bottom would tag, which would leave the guy in the corner wide open. And if you look at it too, so if the guy in the corner would not go, obviously it's an alley-oop dunk right away. If he goes, then it's a pass to the corner and for open shot. In this clip right here, the one thing that I would have liked is that he hit him and then try to get out of there just a tad bit quicker, but which is tough to do because Odiase runs at him full speed, is a big body. But in the end here, possibly the guy from the corner, as soon as he sees that, he gets hit like that and the ball and the guard passes it to the high man, that he maybe runs out there because he could get there a little bit quicker than the guy tagging, right? So here he goes up, he sees the guard with the ball, sees the corner's not open, so then he decides to throw it to the high guy, and I think he could have got there too. In the end, we did not work on it in that way. Really, we more so worked on just tagging the guy and not really that the guy on the corner is supposed to run out to get him. So it's not at his fault here, but in that situation, I feel like he could have run up there just to make sure that he helps his teammate, right?
Right. So when you're teaching it, you don't say like, hey, this could potentially be an audible where if he gets stuck, then he's got to close it type deal. It's like this player's got to get out from that high tag earlier.
Yeah, thing is too that we wanted the high tag to be above the free throw line too.
Right.
So here at the beginning, if you go back a little bit further down, further back, so right here, he's already moving down too far.
Right.
And he's supposed to be in that position early. And now go back a second, about a second again. So right here where the screen happens, or right here, he should already be a second before that again. He should already be on the elbow just to make sure that he can get him as soon as possible.
Right. The only other question I have about this particular clip before we move on is what about the 2 to the ball? At what point do you want the screen defender out of there when you are high tagging? Or do you switch and send the original ball defender out?
Well, he does kind of need to stay there until the guard is able to somewhat get in front, right? Because their guards are pretty capable, even though they want to shoot more, they're pretty capable in terms of getting all the way to the basket.
Right.
and that's why it's actually important to stay until the guard is in front. And they did a really good job of stringing us out there and making sure that the big stays as long as possible.
Like it. Here is a defending clip. Again, this is an angled stagger set that they seem to run a lot. So it's starts like a horns alignment basically, but then there's a cut down the center, and then the other forward sets the first screen. It's almost basically like a Chicago action at an angle across the top, I would call it. And then going from there, there's the flare screen to the ball screen and roll. They end up with a mid-range jump shot. Talk about the set. Do you have it in your scout? Is it one that you are really worried about? And how do you think you played it overall?
Overall, I thought we did pretty well. We wanted what our main thing about it was really for the first action was simply over under, just to make sure that we take that drive away right away. So here he goes and gives the handoff. So we're going over the first screen,
Yeah,
under the handoff.
Under the handoff, yeah.
Exactly. Because they're not, even though they are able to shoot off the dribble, they're able to shoot off of different situations. This is a three that they did not really take at all. If
right.
They more so wanted to get to the basket.
And would you? I'm sorry to interrupt you, because that statement's very interesting to me. Would you then know that from watching this? Like, they ran this set multiple times in this game. I would assume they probably run it a lot throughout the season. Would you then just zero in on if they're taking this three a lot when you're doing your scout and decide like, no, we can go under on that because this particular player or this particular part of the action, they don't shoot it a lot?
Was more so in terms of in the games how much they get out of that action, out of the handoff right there in terms of getting to the basket or taking those shots, right? And
right.
Kind of trying to figure out what makes more sense. And one thing that they did was they do like to, as soon as they get an advantage out of something, attack right away and get all the way to the basket. What happens then with this set is that if he were to be able to get to the basket, who's going to be the help? If it's from the ball side or the way that he's going, it's an easy pass to the corner.
Right.
If it's the other way, then it's probably an alley-oop dunk to Odiase again. So we figured, go over under is the best thing here. And then in terms of that flare on the other side, we weren't as concerned in terms of this guy, Harper Camp, because he's not a shooter. With other players like Möninghoff, I forgot what number he had, but we would still go under, but try to make sure that we get to the spot right, as quick as we can, because he would usually not stop, but run all the way to the corner,
right,
because they're running the ball screen right afterwards.
Right. Yeah, I found it interesting that you were going under on this, and then you end up in this step up and roll, and I think your man does. This man right here on the elbow does a great job of getting there a little bit earlier on that high tag, and manages to get himself not stuck. But they end up with that 18-foot shot, which statistically saying, I think I'd probably be all right with, given all the other options out of this set.
Plus, it's not something that they're really trying to get out of their offense anyways. And we can live with a contested mid-range shot.
Right. Here's a simple one, probably not much discussion on it. Transition three, yay or nay? I ask every week type deal. He actually ends up missing this one. It's fairly early in the game. There are a couple instances throughout the game where you hit some good ones in transition. What's sort of the viewpoint on your team? Can anybody take them? Do they have to be, a certain percentage shooter, or is it a shot that you don't welcome?
It really depends, right? We wouldn't necessarily say certain percentage shooter because he only shoots about 32% this year, but last year he shot almost 50%. But you're not going to penalize him for only shooting 32% this year. But he's somebody where you would just have to give it to him at times. And but it's not necessarily a shot that we really want, right?
Right.
But with him, it's just okay. He took the shot. He will make some. He'll miss some, and it's okay. And then also, it usually depends on the situation in the game as well. It's pretty early in the game. It's okay. Say if we had 2-3 possessions after another where we didn't get anything out of them, or they weren't good possessions, then taking a shot like that is not that great of a decision. But with him, it's still something where we say, okay, that's something that we got to give him. And he's really the only guy on the team who will usually take that type of shot, anyways.
Interesting. I let the next clip run just a little bit by accident, but it starts with that same transition 3, and then they get into a half court set. They don't get anything out of the transition. The ball gets back up top, turns out to be a top pick and roll. You can see they're big getting in and out quickly, just like you described. They drop the single side down to the corner. There's a fill in behind. And while this happens, that high tag a little bit late, but I noticed that the low tag is also pulled in. So my question is, does he need to be in the paint if you're high tagging here? Or is that a reaction to 77 maybe being a little bit late on it? Because this to me looks like you end up basically with 4 guys in the paint on this.
He really does not need to be in there. In this situation, I guess it's okay because 18, we would live with him shooting a 3.
Right.
But in general, we would not want him in there. And I think even though 77 is a little bit late in there.
Sorry, I'll go right back to the action. There's a lot of play after the play there. I apologize.
So here he's late. It does not look like he could really, or he would really want it to get the ball in there. Maybe it is because the guy's in the paint.
Right.
But it was kind of crowded with the drop guy being pretty close as well.
Right. I agree. I think that's a tough pass, right? Like you said, he's a good athlete, but I still think that's a fairly difficult pass to make.
Yeah. So we would technically want him out there, but but I guess in this situation it's okay since 18 is not a shooter.
We got a double drag with a shallow cut here. This is an interesting one to me. So I don't really ever see this action with a double drag type deal. So instead of having the ball side corner filled, your number 3 is in the wide slot on the other side. You guys utilize what is basically a double drag action. The player guarding the ball falls, if I remember correctly, but number 3 just basically shallow cuts to the other side. Is it one that you run a lot? And it's kind of a unique set. Talk me through it a little bit.
Honestly, that's just him doing something.
Really?
Not that we have. It's just him walking over there and trying to set actually what he wanted to do. When you look at it right here, what he wanted to do, he really wanted to set a flare screen for 77.
Interesting.
Which is still not necessarily something that we do, but he wanted to make something happen, and then decided, okay, since that it's open over there, and
I'm just gonna go there because it's open.
Exactly, I'm just gonna go over there and take the shot, right? But it's actually not something that we have in there. It's just us trying to make a play and trying to see. Doing something that we see in that moment. And yeah,
Well, I mean, good players make good plays. That's what it comes down to, right? It's interesting though, because I think I might actually try to draw this up and replicate it, because what I find out of it is you're going to have 2 to the ball, even if it's for a second here. And then on the roll, there's a bit of an advantage. I don't think I would try to even set this flare screen. I just have him get out like he does. And I think he's rolling into space no matter what, because I think if this ball defender doesn't drop, he's still going to follow 24. So the guy that's guarding the guy who ends up with the shot, I think for a second at least, is always going to end up on this elbow.
Really, it does look like a double with Spain action at the end.
Yeah, I could see that. Same idea.
Yeah.
Ends up with a pretty good shot though. This is
go back again, because I do
Yeah.
think that's pretty interesting as well, because I feel like so if you do run that as a set, and have here Chapman, Burkott Chapman, our number 2, goes all the way to the corner, and Alex King, that's our number 77. If he were to roll, I could see it as a set. Yep. Instead of him popping out of it,
And Chris just messaged me in the chat saying too that like it would probably also work if you 45 cut 3 and then lift the gentleman that's in the far side corner as well, right? Yeah. Like everybody's just finding space, so to speak, but it causes a lot of confusion up top, and it's definitely different than your typical 77 or double drag type play. Like it. Here is kind of one of their staples, which was like a flip to flare action. So this cut, I don't know what to call this cut. I'd still call it an Iverson, even though it's only over top of 1. But here's the flip back and the flare action. Turns into a ball screen towards what is becoming the new single side. They create a double side in behind. And they don't really get anything out of it. So they keep playing by swinging the ball to the left wing. And when they do that, you guys switch. Their guy, number 21, correctly screens the switch man. And now you guys are in a single tag situation on the roll, which is difficult to guard, of course, especially with a versatile roller. And they hit the shake in behind for an open jump shot. Talk me through it, man. What do you see? How would you like it better? There's a lot going on for sure.
Yeah. I mean, for me, everything here is actually all right. They switched this. They switched the flare screen. Right. They do have. Usually, they would like to run that type of flare for Dawkins, play the UCF, because they would get a lot of alley-oop dunks for him as well. So that switch right there is all right. Do not get anything out the screen. I'd like to switch after that as well. But then if it's with that single tag, the thing that we actually wanted in general is to have R24, Cameron Hunt right here, who's the high man on number 13. He's on he's defending number 13. Who's the guy on the opposite wing? Yeah, that's him. Want him more in, basically helping on the drive, and have the low man defending too, so that we do not have to tag off of the single side.
So that would probably be a little bit more like that. So this player more in this direction.
Exactly.
And then this guy, he's got the X close of both of them defending too.
Exactly. Just to make sure that he doesn't drive in there. The big can stay closer to the other big and mug things up a little bit more for the driver, make it more unclear. See, now he comes in there late.
And what's interesting is your low man, look at him right now. He's actually yelling at your high man, saying exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Like, get your butt over there. You need to be helping more.
Yeah. And now that he's in there late, I think it's a pretty open shot, but I still think it's okay because Deshaun Booker is not a knockdown shooter. Like he makes this one, and but you will play the percentages. So over there, that's actually an okay of a shot right there.
That in my opinion is actually a decent level of contest now that I watch it a few times too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's basically there. He makes a hard shot. Like it. This is a side out in the backcourt that turns into a horns, pin down, flip and flare is what my notes say. So there's the horns alignment, turns into the pin down up top. And then there is a flip back action and the flare to the side, and they get nothing out of it. You guys deflected out of bounds. Just are your guys getting more used to the flip and flare automatic, so to speak? Is it just a really good play by a defender there? Talk me through it.
Let's go through there right quick. So the flips in general right here are not that big of a thing if you switch them, in my opinion.
Right.
And
I mean, there's a lot going on here, right? Like I don't even talk about the wedge screen before the pin down that happens in there.
yeah, but the thing is, in terms of that's pretty straightforward. Also, he stays connected here. In terms of the flare, we more so wanted to go under. He decided to
Gonna
go
be my
over
next
this
question.
time.
Like, had you changed the coverage, or did he just make a call there?
It's still pretty early in the game too, so he just decided, which is a good play because going under in that situation would have been a lot tougher to do because of the angle of the screen and where he actually was.
Right.
So that was just a good play right there. With the other things before is not something that we went over like that. He did not set that good of a screen. Would he have gotten the ball down to Odiase in the post? So go back.
Right here.
So right here, he does set that. I forgot what you call that screen.
I would call this a wedge, basically. So wedging him into the post. I'm sure somebody has a different name for it, but it's like a diagonal cross screen that brings that player into the post.
I had a different name for it. I just forgot what it was though. But we would not have minded it that much. We felt like we could play him one-on-one in the post, as long as we keep him going over his right shoulder.
Right.
So we did not really. That was not really something that was that important to us. The rest of it, that's why you can see he's not really bumping anybody, just trying to get through, just trying to get, stay with the shooter. And then afterwards, it's just making a play.
Love it. I want to give a shout out to Connor Haar, who just jumped on the call. Doesn't surprise me that he's here because he loves European action, but he actually wrote me up in his newsletter last week, and I think that was really awesome. So, man, big shout out. Thanks for joining today. Nice to see you. We got a sideline out of bounds next. Enrico, are you good so far? You're not bored of me yet?
I'm always bored of you, but let's keep going.
Get up there, big fella.
Just messing.
Sideline out of bounds starts with a stagger away. I just thought it was a great play overall. Iverson cut over top, and then a zip that just kind of goes out into a flare type action. And then you end up with this back cut that just destroys their low man, right? Because he's got to basically guard two. So talk me through the whole set options that you have. Is this sort of what you were hoping for out of it when you called it, or did we make some great plays here? This is great action, in my opinion.
The everything at the beginning was basically the just the play, just what we want out of it right here at the beginning. Stop for a second. Go back to the beginning. Right here, he went backdoor. He doesn't have to go backdoor. He can also be the one that uses the stagger, and the other the lower man goes backdoor. Or
Right.
so they can decide, or he can go around both screens, around one screen. So right there is just kind of just keeping the defense on edge, but one guy always has to go through. The other guy always has to come out at the top. Right.
Love it. Yeah.
So then here, if he were to, because there's that Iverson cut, right? He can give it to him. If he does receive that Iverson cut, it goes automatically goes into a ball screen.
Right.
But now here he or obviously he can attack the basket. And this one we actually never set. Usually don't set because it's a guard on guard, right? So they could just switch it. And off of that is just him attacking. What we typically want is the big rolling. So, because if the big would roll right here, that middle is completely open, right?
Right.
Middle is complete. Go ahead.
Sorry, Enrico. I was just going to say, if he does roll, then you don't get the corner cut. You have that low man occupied by the roll, and you're looking for a second side three at that point.
Depends, right? Because in that moment, even if he passes it right there, and that's the one thing that I talked to you about recently, is if he gets the ball, you see, go back again, just a little bit, just right here, the low man starts. Go ahead, and just stop right here. The low man goes over there, right? But you don't. What we talk about, if you don't see his eyes, you can cut. So even if the big were to roll right here, he would get the ball. He's ready to go. So you could still cut and get a layup out of it, or you could stay in the corner and get a three. So it really depends on what the low man does. Because if he goes in there, but still, plays you to the point where he knows where you are and that pass is not available backdoor, you could still stay out there. So it's really about reading the low man. And right here, the low man, he went in there and he actually expects that pass to go to the corner because he raises up, looks to the corner.
Yeah.
And instead he goes back door.
Not there anymore.
Exactly. And he goes up for a layup. So that's really just playing, just trying to read the game in that situation. Because there are other times that, where you would see us, because our bigs do not prefer rolling. A lot of times they rather pop. You would also start seeing the 45 cut a lot more, the corner cut at times a lot more, just because the guys realize, okay, we got to make something happen here, or we got to, balance the spacing out. So it's just
about these 5 men not wanting to roll the basket anymore. Like, I'm just from a different generation, man.
Well, the problem is if you look at our 5 man that we have on the court right now, he's really not a 5 man. He's a 4 that used to be a 3.
Right.
But due to all of our injuries, we do not really, we don't really have 5 men out there right now. And our other 5 men that we have is really a 4, but we need to play him at the 5 because of foot speed. And then the other 2 bigs that are out right now, one of them is Perry. Wow. Why am I not thinking of his last name right now?
Want me to pull up the box and help you out?
Perry Jones the third.
There you go.
And he's more of a 3-4 guy as well. So he rather, play from the outside as well. So we just, we just have to figure things out to still make it work. And cutting is one way to make that happen, right?
Love it. I'll move on. This one is a defending a baseline out of bounds of theirs. It basically turns into an empty side DHO and roll. It was an interesting one for me. So they give it back to the inbounder, and you just get a roll from the guy who gives the handoff. Give me an idea of what you see here. So, like, I don't even know what to call this alignment, like a 2-and-2 alignment, two across with two facing in. They slip one, they bring one guy out, give it back, and just space from there where it's an empty side handoff and roll, so to speak.
Yeah. Defending it that way, obviously, we just need the help there earlier and be ready for something like that. As soon as they see somebody, their 5 man handing the ball off or wanting to hand the ball off, that we're ready. But in hindsight, possibly since our number 7 is not involved in it, possibly you could switch that because Odiase is not on the court. But yeah, in the end, it was just us being there a little bit late in terms of the help defense and them getting a wide open layup.
Love it. Where are we? The Gortat screen. We got 2 clips on it. Here's one. This is a pretty short clip that doesn't really show the action before, but basically he beats the man to the right, gets downhill from the left slot, and the gentleman who had slipped out of the screen then screens his own or Gortat screens or railroad screens, whatever you want to call it. How do you guys, how do you want to defend that? How do you prevent it from happening? What are your thoughts on it? Does it get called much in FIBA? All those things.
That's not something that we've really had much happen to us much, or teams do it much in this game. It happened a couple times, not many either, but a couple times, and they did a really good job at it. Especially the other one that we were talking about earlier as well. I don't know if you still have it in here or not.
I think it's later. I think it's one of the later ones in there.
But yeah, so in the end, I think it's really it's kind
Here's
of
the other one, I think, right here, Rico. So
yeah.
Same idea, right? There's a flip to the flare action again. Move the ball to the wing, give it back up top, and then you can see underneath there's the first one on the back, and you get the second side 3 out of it.
Yeah. And really, on this one, to me, is pretty straightforward. That if you're going to switch that you stay below. That
Right.
you don't try to switch high, because even if he does not do set that Gortat right here, he might be open for a roll right away.
Right.
So
it's difficult to guard, and like you said, you don't spend much time on it, but I think that it's something we're going to see quite a bit more in the next few years as more teams and more leagues start to catch up on it and try to implement it. I think it's becoming a teaching point in offenses.
How would you defend the Gortat screen?
Well, I think on that last one with the switch, I think your answer is the best in that scenario. Switch underneath, don't switch on top. In the pick and roll scenario, I think it's really hard to do if you're only involving 2 in the pick and roll. I think somehow you've got to get somebody else, like a low tag or a high tag, involved in order to slow the ball handler and not let them have the path to be able to capitalize on it. The problem is, depending on the level that you're at, right? Like there's certain people in this group right now that coach at very high levels. Obviously, the ball handlers are just so good and so fast that they're going to get there. The other real issue too is that, similar to the big on the opposite team that you were playing here, Odiase, I think you said his name was, when they force coverage and get out early, as opposed to make contact and hold a screen, when they roll down, it's like, how do you prevent that? I think, personally, I think if you're going to guard it with 2, you've got to meet that roller higher up on the floor, and you've got to teach him to fight with like swims and and full frontals or 3/4 denies or whatever it is to try and get on the side that you would anticipate the ball to go to. But I think overall you're going to be wrong a majority of the time.
Yeah.
The other way that I would suggest guarding it is there was a game this season that was a Boston Celtics game, and I think we talked about it maybe in Ryan Richmond's run it back or whatever, but Daniel Theis got called for it twice. I think that's the other way to guard it, is to alert refs that you anticipate it's about to happen and have them look for it and see if you can manipulate the way that it's being called a little bit, because it's kind of a gray area call in terms of if it's legal or not, depending on how early you arrive there and how much you're preventing or moving the person type deal. So I think maybe that's another strategy, but overall, I got to watch more film is the simplest answer. I think you're in a lot of trouble.
Because I think one it also happens more so out of snake dribbles.
Right.
And in that scenario, maybe you will just have to decide to switch it.
Yeah, the snake one becomes a tough one, right? Because then the big can actually hold his role longer, let everything develop, and then when the snake happens and he can roll out in behind, then he really has a great angle to come in there and just sit on that low defender. Yeah. And usually he's sitting on a guy that's giving away 30 pounds to him type deal. It's great action. I like it. I'm going to ask the question more and more as we go through, and I've heard some various answers throughout the progression of run it back, but I think it's just a really tough action to guard when you have very good players. Here's one that is a little bit unique, I suppose, kind of like a hook in transition. Sorry, we got a question. Let me field that just before.
It says good evening.
Oh, good evening, Mike. Nice to see you. Sorry.
What's going on, Mike?
It's just like a hook and transition type deal, almost like a step up angle to go to the ball. You didn't switch out early. There's the high tag as well, but then they make the pass on the ball side and your ball defender kind of gets caught. Sorry, your gap defender kind of gets caught with too much space and they hit the three. Talk to me about it.
And that's something, not necessarily the gap defender per se being too low, but us in general being a little bit too low on a lot of different actions, especially in the second half, to where we gave up open threes, knowing that they want to shoot threes. So here was really just him being caught. He was almost at the block.
Yeah.
And really supposed to be, he's supposed to be a lot higher, especially since we got the tag, right? So he does not need to be in there to defend anything. He should just be out there, high gap, probably not even, as much in the gap, more so next to his man, because he's not even all the way in the corner, right? So
right.
if you were in the corner.
One thing I really liked about this one, sorry, Enrico, one thing I really liked about this one was the three-way switch that happened on the high tag. So the original ball defender, you're two to the ball for a second, you get your high tag almost in the area that you want, probably a little bit low, but then he communicates and sends them for the three-way. And I thought that to me was probably the ideal way to play with that high tag in there. I just think your low man, like you said, got caught a step too low type deal.
Yeah. And this also was just an on-court audible by the guys. It was nothing that we talked about. They just figured it out. And that's one thing that we try to stress to them all the time, is that obviously we have certain things that we want to do, but over the course of the game, we might do things wrong and, things might happen. We just got to make sure we communicate and get on the same page. And then things like these happen where, it's not us, really saying anything or, saying this is how it's supposed to be, but more so them figuring it out on the, on the other side. But, him right here, he was definitely too low and allowed them to get a pretty open shot.
I just thought this was a great mid ball screen by you guys. Good read after on it. So here's a wing entry. There's a flare screen that happens. Same time, there's the Iverson and then creates the double side behind the ball handler. End up with your roll. He rolls past a high tag. Their low tag is late and a great drop off with a left-handed hook pass. Just one I wanted to give credit to. Anything special that you see on it, let me know. But overall, I just thought it was a nice play by you guys.
I mean, nothing I can really add to that. This is also a play that we just try to get. We have a bunch of things that we can do out of it, right?
Right.
Because
This is in my opinion, this is a fantastic pass.
Yeah.
Left-handed over the top, through that little passing lane. Good for you, sir.
Yeah, but I really like this play too because there's a lot of things we can do out of it. We have a flare. He could get it out of a down screen right there, a flare again, and then he just decides to ball screen right there.
Right.
Because it could have kept going, us just playing basically out of off ball screens. Because right here, he could have, the guy that runs to the corner could come up there and get another down screen and then get a ball screen. But yeah, right here he decided to use that ball screen right there. And since go back again. Since he's running over there for the flare, his guy thinks he might get the ball at the same time the ball screen is happening. So the low tag man will be kind of late, right?
Right. So when you have multifaceted set like this, when you introduce it to your guys, do you say that all options are equal, or do you call certain players numbers to try and get them the primary action out of it, or the primary matchup is this is the one we want to attack out of this action, so to speak?
Usually all options are equal, but right here in this instance, for example, I'm very sure it was called that we want a ball screen.
Right.
So with everything else, usually it's just play out of it, just try to see what we have. But because he does not even, if you go back a little bit, he's not even further. So right here, he sets that first screen, and then he's not waiting on the other guy to come.
No, he followed it immediately.
So that's a call, and yeah. So, but we do have other than that in that play, it's usually just all actions are equal, and then maybe get a ball screen out at the end. And here, that's what we wanted out of it.
Love it. Taking the ball off the rim. So I just had to throw this in for my North American family that doesn't play FIBA. I just wanted to say how good would this be if you guys could play it. So they post the ball, they put it up on the rim, and he just takes it right off the rim, and we go back the other direction. Love the rule. Want to see it more in the United States, especially. I mean, we have it in Canada typically, but do you teach your players to do this, or is this a good player just making a good play?
We do not teach it. And actually, I think this game we did it 4 times.
I think it's something like that, yeah.
3 or 4 times. And this is actually the first game that we were able to get the timing right.
Well, I mean, it's beautiful, right? He beats it on the glass, and you start a fast break. Like
100%. 100%.
Well,
I'm impartial to that rule. Like I don't mind it either way. But when knowing that we can do it, it's perfect. The way the timing and everything, it's perfect.
And I mean, the guy that does it, I mean, he's not a small guy, don't get me wrong, but he's not the biggest guy on the floor either. You don't have to be a monster to do it. You just have to time it right. Get up there and get it off.
Yeah.
Defending, I put in hurting the low tag on this. So you guys went away a little bit from the high tag I felt here. You can see he rolls through, and this is personnel based, I would assume, as you mentioned in the preparation part when we were talking. But they put your low man in the blender, so to speak, get an open 3. Talk me through it.
It is really just blown coverage.
Fair.
He was supposed to get him, and that's what happened here is actually what happened all of the first game. That he would just use the screen, low man tries to get in there so he doesn't get the dunk, ball gets to the corner, wide open three. And I mean wide open three.
Yeah.
And yeah, in that moment, if he's not tagging him, okay, then you have to be able to get to the corner quicker, right?
Love it.
But yeah.
Sideline out of bounds, lob to the rim. Pretty simple set. Where'd you guys screw up in your opinion?
It was actually bad too because it was just it was 6 seconds on the clock, but we knew they wanted something quick. I was just right there. It was just like he wanted to top block him, so he could not get a shot up there. He already, what time it was, the third quarter. I think he had 13, 15 something points at halftime.
Right.
He just, wanted him to not get an open shot. That led to him being really out of position to help in any kind of way. Wide open layup. Wide open. Yeah.
Are you good, sir? We're in an hour and a half. I got about 6 clips left. Do you want to go through them or you want to cut it there?
Let's do 3 more.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. What do I got? Is there anything that really stands out to me? This is just a guard your yard type clip or whatever, a blow by. So I'll move past that. I'll move past the Gortat. Here's a 45 cut that I thought was really good. I'm wondering if this is your player just making a read, an excellent read, or if this is kind of scripted in terms of based on the coverage type deal. So I'll play it once, and then there's your cut going through. And then I'll try and talk through the whole set here. So we're left slot. We got a little handoff action. We remain in the left slot. We get a ball screen attacking. Don't get anything. We swing to the other side who comes off of a pin down. Swing it back. And now we're attacking. And as we're attacking the nail, we again get nothing. But when we get nothing, the other 45 makes this beautiful backdoor cut. One just gets caught too high. Is it just a matter of reading the back of the head as you say, or are you kind of looking for it based upon coverages?
It's just reading in that moment again, and it's something that number 20 is actually really good at. He's really good at reading defenses and cutting to the basket. At times, we do get hurt where it might be two guys even cutting at the same time, and
Right.
But right here, he just saw, okay, he's just standing there in no man's land, not looking at him at all. And if he were to get stopped by Dawkins at the bottom, it's a wide open 3 in the corner. So it's just him making a play. There's nothing we really teach in that regard. But the one thing that we do in practice though is at times we go 4-and-4. No dribble, 4-and-3, no dribble, or one dribble. So just things where we do get the move in, make something happen, set a screen for somebody. That's what happened at the beginning of the play where 3 just sets a off-ball screen for 20.
Right here.
Yeah, so Ward right there, Tyson Ward sets the screen for our number 20 Albus, and then right here he just decides to cut.
I like how the low man is literally like, hey, he's cutting. It's like, yeah. This is the last possession of the third quarter. I'll probably actually have one more. I want the not rolling into tag one afterwards because we talked about this a little bit in Max's presentation that you and I were in on the weekend, and I wanted to know if that was a teaching point. Last play, it's basically it's set up like you have a top screener above the 3-point line and then 3 across on the baseline. Turns into a ram screen. So he rams, goes to the ball screen. They go towards the left, and it's roll replace action on the help side, but he ends up pulling up for a 3. Walk me through in terms of the way you defend it. Like, how do you feel about the roll replace switch? How do you feel about the on-ball pressure, all that kind of stuff?
Well, right here, if you look at the personnel on the floor, they basically do not have a 5 men on the floor. We basically don't have a 5 men on the floor. What they're running right there is actually a quick Spain pick and roll at the end of the clock, right? But they do not set the screen since they figure we're probably switching out of things. So he tries to get to that spot as quick as possible.
Right.
But we're right here um, out of this, especially because we're switching and the guard in the ball screen. He's the one guy on the team that we're trying to get out of everything to the basket because he's about 6 foot six. Now he's 6'1", little guy, and we do not want him down there posted up by anybody. Everybody
Listen,
else.
Enrico, we got to stop calling 6'1" guys little guys. I'm a little bit hurt in my soul.
Well, I'm 6'1" as well.
I'm 6
But
foot and 3/8 of an
Right.
inch. So.
but in this situation, especially with bigger guys rolling down there, a lot of times, especially if you don't have a lot of weight, it's a quick mismatch. Throw the ball up there, and you're not able to do anything about it. Um, and that's what he is for us. Like he's 6'1". He
Yeah.
does not have a lot of weight on his body,
Yeah.
so we're trying to get him out of there as quick as possible. And he's able to just take the guy that's replacing up. We have another guy on the team who's not on the court right now. He's 6'2", but he's a little bit more feisty. He has a little bit more weight on his body. We just switch with him and he fights. With him, we know that that's something that we can't do as much. So we're just trying to get him out of there as quick as possible.
And I'll end on this one. It's sideline out of bounds for you guys in the backcourt. You bring it in. I think if I remember correctly, it was fairly aggressive coverage. No, so we end up with the mid pick and roll here and 2 to the ball. And then what I liked was number 2 stopped his roll, just sort of not rolling into the tag, swims back and gets it. They end up fouling you. You don't get anything out of it. But I was wondering if this was by design, if he's just making a smart play to not roll into the tag, so to speak. Max Nelaton, former guest on the show, presented with Enrico and myself this past weekend in something that we were doing to just get better. Jimmy's on the call as well. And just like it was a really interesting thing to me that I had not thought of before. I'm wondering if this is a good example of him just making a play of not rolling into the tag.
He basically, I don't think in this instance that it was that as much. It was more so that 3 stopped his dribble.
Right. And he wants to
decided,
help him.
Yeah, and that's where he decides, hey, I got to be a release valve. Is that the right word?
What did you say?
A release valve.
Yeah. Pressure release or a release valve. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that he's that for him, which I think what could have helped even if he were to roll all the way in, if your Cameron Hunt, that's our number 24 on the ball screen, if he actually filled in a little bit more, and that would make that corner pass wide open if he rolls all the way, right?
Right.
So because this is a switch, so that's where he probably also decided, hey, let me get the ball in this mismatch. But the position is not, position is not ideal. Where we maybe, it's only 11 seconds on the shot clock, but maybe could have been a little bit more, patient with it. Have 24 fill up all the way. He maybe goes down, seals him on his back. Could have 2 guys on him and, have the corner wide open. Doesn't have 2 guys on him. He has him on his back and finishes it. So that's just him making a play because him basically, giving him a release because he's getting stopped and he picked up his dribble. But yeah, I think it could have gone a little bit different. But at the same time, he's very good in those situations in terms of one-on-one. So it's still not a bad option. So yeah, that's all I can say about that. Plus, with him is actually one of the guys has been able to respond to that very quickly, and that's his,
Right.
with that actually, that his first game being back after like 3-4 months being out, he did a really good job as well.
Sorry about that, Rico. So that's all I have film wise. This game I mentioned to you before. I had actually pulled 43 clips from this originally and got it down to the 25. This most clips I've had in a while. I know you were saying that the league goes ups and downs. It goes in ebbs and flows. But I mean, man, you guys are running great stuff over there, and there's a lot of corrections I'm sure that have to happen. And I'm amazed at you guys' ability to recognize everything that's going on in all of your sets and get to it. And I'm sure there's lots of hours of film. But I wanted to just say thank you, because I know like you're in the middle of the season. This game, this Run It Back 50 will come out a few weeks later type deal, but like this game was 2 days ago as of the day that we're filming. So I really appreciate your time.
Yesterday.
Pardon me, sorry?
Yesterday.
My apologies. Yeah, that's yesterday. And I mean, obviously we had a pretty short turnaround putting this together, but like I appreciate your time so much and everything that you contribute. For those that don't know, Enrico and I talk fairly frequently, and I'm sure he's had enough of me and my questions at this point, but overall really good guy. And for all the coaches that jump on the calls, I say it all the time, but like you guys really mean the world to me. Like you taking your time to listen in and share in and ask questions, it means everything to me. This is 50 of them, gentlemen. Like, thank you. It's been awesome. This was kind of like a let's see where it goes type deal, and we put together 50 of them, and we're coming up on a year of it's a couple months away from a year of doing this show. So I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much. I hope it continues to provide value for everybody. Let me know how it can be better. Enrico, I'm just going to end it with a big thank you for your time, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, man.
Pleasure.